All right, what's going on, traders? Back here on August 23rd for my July 2020 recap. Sorry it's taken 23 days, but the first week of August I lost power due to a storm. Second week I was on vacation. And this week I really just got back into my normal routine, so I decided might as well bang out the recap for you guys because I would like to make one every single month of this year just so I can kind of remember my journey and so you guys can learn through my experience. July ended up being a really good month for the opportunity that was out there. I feel like I performed very well, profiting 126K after my fees and only having one red day of $604. And actually, that day I was up over 3,000 with only 1 hour to go. And I made a mistake on CYDY, and I was trying to predict something rather than reacting and getting into too much size, and unfortunately taking a painful loss that day. And that brought me to negative 600 on that day. But other than that, I had a pretty good month, but it was very hard to keep focus the entire month. And I did make a mistake into this last week. I was kind of already ready for vacation, and I kind of just didn't take the market as seriously as I should have. And I kind of just dabbled into Kodak and ended up putting myself in a really bad situation, but still got out okay just because I managed my position the best that I could. And then after that, that kind of just made me realize I need to step back and I need to be focused on more than anything other than profits, just your mental health. And you're trading your best when you have the best mindset. And I wasn't having the best mindset this last week here in July. I was very burnt out from the last 8 or 9 weeks, pulling in, just ridiculous weekly totals here in June and in July. And then as you can see, this was my substantially first smaller month or a smaller week here. So other than that, just go over the normal recap here, talk about my stats, and then get into some charts from this month. Average winning trade to average loser, right around that 3x, so that's fine with me. Average percent gain here is a little bit low, coming in only at 5.75%, but something that I want to talk about is I haven't just been taking one position and either selling that position for a loss or selling that position for a win. I have really adapted to scaling in and out this year, just because when I think you get profitable and you get more size, it's a lot harder to take one entry, one exit, one stop loss. Tim Gertani still does it pretty well, but my style is more, if I'm going to be taking a bigger position, I want to not just take it in the minute that I decide I want to take it. I want to start in slow and then add to my winner, take profits as it pays me, and just follow the trend with the best risk reward that I can get. And that's my mindset with every trade. And what's way more important to me than average percent gain is my average win to my average loss. And that's right at a 3.0, and I'm pretty happy with that. And my big loss here on Kodak probably raised that a bunch near the end of the month. It was probably a bit lower in the 300s or 400s, I would imagine, before this 8K loss, but still achieving that 3-to-1, so I'm happy. Averaging about $6,000 per day, just pretty crazy that I'm doing that this year just after making multiple 6K months last year. Trading is so scalable, guys, and once you really understand yourself and you start getting better and pushing yourself, it's so quick to get to a level that you always thought you could get to. So getting into the monthly review here, as you can see here in my P&L tab, I didn't really have massive wins, whereas last month, I'll show you here, I had GNUS and CYDY, which were nearly half my month. So that's why I was saying this month, I'm very happy with how good I traded for the opportunity that was out there. Only 2 smaller 5-figure gains compared to GNUS and CYDY, of course. But of course, this is still 28K, which is great. But other than these 2 trades, I still made 100 grand if you count all these trades here. And really, it was just a lot of trading, right? And that's why I was burning out, because I was managing so many positions per day. Because that's how I believe that you can lower risk, is taking more positions with less risk. And then it's easier to ditch the ones that aren't working and focus on the ones that are working. So 164 trades, that's a bunch. And it's a little bit over my average. And I won so many of those trades too, which is great. So trading OTCs about 62% of the time, which is good. OTCs are my home, and I was trading a little bit more NASDAQ at the start of this year in March and April, and I thought that was kind of going to be my direction of this year, but CYDY really ignited my love for OTCs again and really got me focused into this summer, May, June, July, even August. The OTCs have been where my focus is, because I know I can have better opportunity for lower risk trades with the same reward. But of course, I'm still trading NASDAQ, but I just don't want to be sizing into a lot of these NASDAQs. As you can see here, just look at all the OTC gains over the NASDAQ. NASDAQ, I don't really like taking huge size on, because everything's a lot quicker, so you can make a mistake easier than with OTCs. It gives you a little bit more time to think, and the price action usually doesn't lie to you, right? Where NASDAQ price action can lie to you and then cause emotional mistakes. So that's why I like focusing on OTCs. Going long 45% of the time, short 55. Like I said, I love to keep it 50-50 every single month. This month, it was a little more short bias. Shorting is my preferred method. NASDAQ, as you can see, I'm not trading NASDAQ as much, but when I do trade it, I operate at a high efficiency with lower risk. And I only want to be taking the super easy NASDAQ trades, and I don't want to be trying to hit home runs on them. I just want to be wallet padding. I want to be focusing on my OTCs. OTC is about 61 win percent. This is right around my overall stuff. Nothing, I literally think I've had a 64% win rate for like 5 or 6 months in a row. It's pretty crazy how statistical it is, where it's literally 64 point something every single month for so many months straight. And nothing else here. My profit factor between all my wins and all my losses is 5.2. That is a little bit better than average. My longing was good this month with a 4.4, and my short 5.5. Overall, really happy with this month, and even my longs here, average profit 840, average loss 270. So I really think I did well with my longing this month. And that mainly comes from a lot of these panic dip buys. And that has been probably my biggest gain on the long side this year, is panic dip buys. And that really has just come from me being a short seller and me covering stocks and learning how to identify bottoms. So my shorting really helps me with my going long. I'm not a good breakout trader. I did start my journey as a breakout trader because I didn't have as much capital and I couldn't be playing so many stocks at the same time. I didn't have so many brokerage accounts. So breakouts gave me a high percent gain. But after that, I'm switching to these more scalpier trades. Not really scalping, but I'm following the trend as best as I can and adding and lessening size as the price action kind of tells me what to do and trusting my instinct on the stocks. But that is enough of this. I mean, I told you guys about my Kodak loss here, my CYDY loss. And then other than that, only had 2 trades that were more than negative 1,000. And this trade actually carried over from last month. It was just an awful mistake in my IB account where I got too much size and I kind of just sat with it and then I got bought in. It was just a mess. And then this was, I'm not sure what this trade was. ALYI. I love this ticker. This was one of my best breakout trades last year. The sector's hot with the electric vehicles and they kept PRing about it. It had a really nice chart. And I tried to predict that it was going to break out instead of adding my size once it was proven correctly and then some slippage on the fills at the open. A lot of my large losses come from predicting something at the open instead of waiting for it to show me. And that is even how I've taken some losses this month. GLDLF. I know this is a ticker from the 3rd week of August, but I predicted that it was going to do something instead of reacting, and I took a loss on Friday, last trading day. But fortunately, I was able to make my money back because it eventually did die, but I could have saved myself that loss if I was a little bit more patient. And that's why I was saying at the start of this video, I never like taking all my size at the same time because it's too quick. If you're wrong, you're going to take a big loss. Whereas if you start in small and keep adding, your average is going to be better, especially if you're only adding to winners. And that's what's key when you're adding, is to only be adding to winners. All right, so to get into some of these charts here. All right, sorry guys, was just getting some water there. But now to get into some of these charts. CYDY, talked about this one last month, but this ended up being the last day of the month, which was my biggest gain ever on CYDY. And then guess what, guys? The ticker doesn't go away. You know, this is still going to offer a ton of trading opportunity. As you can see, it's a lot choppier. But since I've been watching this stock since it was nothing, I'm going to still keep trading this where other people are going and trying to trade other things. This still has great range, as you can see, from 7 to the 5s this day, and just dollar a share range up and down. And that's something that I can take advantage of. So I did a really good job at trading this for pretty much all of last month. I started getting chopped around in it here on August in this kind of price action, but this price action I ended up doing really well on, and this was one of my big gains was just shorting kind of this fade here. And this is just a pattern that we look for where after it has that super hard supernova crack, they all kind of round off and curl down, right? Another one we can compare it to is GNUS, right? It didn't have it as cleanly because it's a NASDAQ, but, you know, hard crack, and now we're rolling over, right? So it's the same idea on CYDY, where after we have that hard crack, I'm looking for it to start rolling over and cracking the key daily support levels. Instead of a breakout, we're looking at a breakdown, right? And Tim Stykes refers to this as the number 6 and the number 7 in the penny stocking framework, where this would be the number 6, shorting it up here, and shorting it down here would be the number 7. And for me, I don't really know how high it's gonna bounce, and I don't like kind of trying to pick a top on these bounces. And as you can see on this day, I gapped up huge, so it's hard to tell. Whereas once it starts confirming there's a seller, it's wicking, it's breaking down lower. This is where I'm shorting, and I made really good profit on this day, being short overnight from this red candle and covering into this red candle, kind of trading it around a core, like I was saying, adding and covering into the pops and the dips, and ended up making about 10K on that trade there, right? This trade right here, exactly what I'm talking about. And as you can see, I traded 25,000 shares, but I never had 25,000 shares at one time. I think I had 10, 12,000 shares at the most. So kind of just adding, and I still made about a 42 net gain, a cent a share gain, 7% return. But like I'm saying, just because it had the first red day doesn't mean that the pattern is over. And I traded CYDY a lot this month. CYDY, 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 CYDY. So as you can see, I'm trading it a lot. And really these small singles keep adding up. And it's just, if you look at these trades, it's a lot of the same tickers. And that's what OTC is. It's not like NASDAQ where there's a lot of range up and down all the time, different tickers always going off. It's kind of just a few tickers that are running. So I like to take advantage of the most liquid, the most range tickers. For instance, RLFTF this month started from 10 cents, went to $1, and the volume was insane. And I was getting a lot of trades on that this month. You'll see that in next month's recap. But I'm just trying to refer to something that is in the present time so you guys can get a better understanding, since I'm making this video lesson so late. And that is CYDY for you. I will talk briefly about my DKMR trade, which was my biggest trade of the month. DKMR for 18K. And I was in the stock for a month, and I never had 42,000 shares. Once again, I just had 15, 20,000 shares. And this was just an OTC promotion after it had its hard crack. The same pattern, right, guys? The same bounce, fail, and then I'm leaning into this fade and just adding kind of in this area, 620.22. So I started shorting it this day. Literally same exact pattern as CYDY, guys. And this one took a lot longer to pay, but I was just riding the trend line, right? So another thing that I use in my trading is these trend lines. And look how perfect this trend line is, right? It's so easy to ride this down because every single day the tape keeps confirming to me that I am correct, right? But after, when it pops through the trend line, right, and it comes back down and sets a lower low here, or higher low, that's where I took all of it off, right? I took all of it off right here because we broke trend, we held, and then we started ramping back up, and the stock doubled. So if I kept holding, I'm just trying to ride these stocks for as much as I can. So another great example, same chart pattern as CYDY, a little bit slower of a pair, but still paid nicely. Okay, we will get into my favorite pattern. Someone asked me on Twitter what the best stock was to study this month. And I think it was NEXCF, which looks kind of like CYDY, but just a great clean 3-day green run. Red day, nice range, holds near its highs, another breakout of 4 days. Another first red day right here, but this one came all the way back and can kind of consolidate at the highs, and then it just gets a little bit less predictable up here. So my big day was shorting it this day, and I took a lot more size than this day because the stock just wasn't as extended. Yes, it was a 3 green day run, but I like judging the stocks based on where they really started their run. So this stock really started its run from $1. So now when we're up near the sevens, I'm taking more size because it's confirmed that when it does go red, it goes red. And I ended up shorting maybe like 10,000 shares in the sevens and got out around the sixes. It was a great trade. And ended up making about 10,000, and then I gave about 1,000 back, shorting either 5 to 7,000 shares on the bounce, and ended up giving about 1K of my profits back. And that is that. I can talk about a couple of my losers now. So we have Kodak. So I'll talk about this one and kind of what happened and my mindset on the day. And so you guys can see the chart. So this was just a pretty insane supernova from 2 to 60. And I basically just got caught the wrong day with, I wasn't respecting the stock for really what it was. I was just kind of, well, I'll tell you what happened. I traded some stocks off the open, I think 4 or 5 stocks, nailed all of them for winners for around like $1,000. I was up like 5K on the day, and I was just kind of bored, and this thing had gapped up so much. So I just kind of started shorting it in the 20s because I was like, oh, this is up too much. You know what I mean? So I can just get away with just scalping the stock, you know, I'm kind of bored. And then all of a sudden the stock starts halting up on me, and I'm losing so much money so quickly. And before I know it, you know, my entire day's gain is gone unrealized. And of course, I don't want to chase this strength, so I'm just going to wait for the pullback. And guess what? It went all the way to 60, and I was down about 35 grand at the top. I had 1,000 shares short from 25, and I was down about 35K at the top. And fortunately, it did come all the way back, and it gave me a good price to get out at, and I got out. But then, unfortunately, I started reshorting some bounces because I was emotional, right? I'm not in a good headspace. I just went through a wild swing of being down 35K, being break even, being down 5 grand. And I just started shorting these bounces because a lot of the times when these supernovas go on these massive runs, you know, there's usually a pull to VWAP, and VWAP was still a lot lower. So I started shorting bounces, and I ended up just chopping myself up, and it was just a terribly emotional day. 1 second, gonna get some water. All right, sorry about that, guys. But that's basically my story with Kodak. That was my worst unrealized loss I ever looked at. But fortunately, I got out of the situation okay. And of course, it's not acceptable for me to be trading like that. But I've made a great deal of profits in my trading history. So being down 35K is not the end of the world, but it's still a very crappy situation to put myself in because this could have gone to 100 and I could have been down 75K, and there's all my month's profits pretty much gone. Or I guess I still would be up 50K, but it could have gone to, you know, 150 and I could have lost all my monthly gains. But I compared it to BPTH, and I knew it was coming from $2, right? So it's not like I'm shorting this at $1 and I'm putting myself at risk for it to go to 50. I shorted it at 25. I'm putting myself at risk for it to go to 100, maybe more. But knowing there eventually would be a pullback because stocks do not go straight up, right, guys? The stock's not going to go to $1,000 per share, right? So waited for the pullback, got out, minimized my loss as best that I could. Shouldn't have been in the trade in the first place. And once again, this is why I don't like NASDAQs, because they're too fast. And I was down so much so quickly, and I just didn't want to lose all my day's gains. And next thing I know, you know, I'm down 10, I'm down 15, I'm down 20, I'm down 25, I'm down 30, I'm down 35 before it finally had its correction. So bad situation there. good lesson. I'll talk about this CYDY trade here. This was 7/20, so note that date. Like I said, this was my only red day of the month. And this was this day right here where I just kind of started shorting it at 6. And I just kind of kept adding and adding and adding. And before I knew it, I had like 25,000 shares short from like 640. And of course, this was after it topped out at 670. So I kind of came back and my average just wasn't very good. And I ended up taking a loss of at 650, but just way too much size. And it was just because I was like, okay, this is bounced from 280 to 7, so I'm going to try to take a huge position, risking this $7 area right here. And I just didn't really think about the math, and I was risking 60 cents on 25,000 shares. And I was like, what did I do to myself? Like, I need to get out. So I got out for a few grand loss, whereas I should have been sized in maybe 10% of that size, like 2 or 3K, with the knowledge of I want to be swinging this because of the resistance up here. And I ended up just screwing myself up, because then when this day came along, I still capitalized and I still made, I think, 7 or 8K on this day right here, but I could have done a lot better if I was in a better headspace after this day right here. And the price action was funky. As you can see here, it's had a morning spike and just broke the previous day's high on news, and then just had a huge panic all the way down to $5. So I had the right idea to be shorting aggressive here today, but I wasn't considering my risk management, and it's not how I trade, just to take a position and kind of just hold, because I'm not good at managing massive size positions. I'd rather be shorting 25,000 shares this day if I could fill when it starts working. But other than that, that's basically all I got for you guys today. 2 mistakes this month. Still a great month for 129,000 gross before fees. And after Kodak, I kind of took a step back. I've been sizing down. August has been super, super consistent for me. It's been a lot less stressful. Of course, I'm not going to be able to pull another 6-figure month, but I'm still making great money, and I'm super grateful. I love trading every single day. So I will catch you guys here in just a couple weeks when August ends with my August recap, and it's going to be very laid back about how it's okay to be sized down. It's okay not to be pushing yourself as hard as you can be, and it's okay just to be comfortable. You know, a lot of people say, oh, you have to keep pushing yourself. It's not okay to keep pushing yourself till you physically get sick. You know what I mean? There comes a point where you have to back off the gas, and that is what I did here in August after realizing that wasn't in the right headspace. So that was my July. Very stressful. Very grateful for all the profits, and later, guys.